Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Well done, OP. That's hilarious and awesome. Also, they should know to stay off other people's property, especially in Florida. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. Hose down two teenagers who refuse to get out of my yard. Today I was doing some minor maintenance on my car. It leaks oil really badly, so I was under the hood checking the fluids and all that. I had my earbuds listening to Spotify when I look up and am very startled to see two teenage girls not only in my yard but very uncomfortably close to me. I have an exaggerated startle response due to trauma, and being caught off guard like that immediately caused me to stress, but I tried very hard to remain calm. I removed my earbuds and asked them what I could do for them. They were kind of chattering amongst themselves and ignoring me. Basically, they wanted a ride and were rudely debating if my car could even run all right there in front of me. It was really annoying. You ever have someone blatantly talking crap about you, like you literally aren't standing right there hearing every word, and then have the absolute audacity to ask for your help? Yeah, so anyway, I told him to kick rocks. I didn't even know who these two were, and this is not the kind of neighborhood to just wantonly wander onto someone else's property without invitation. Well, they weren't trying to hear all that and started talking even more crap, insulting my car, which, fine, whatever, it is a piece of crap, but they crossed the line by making some insinuations about me as a person, basically implying that I was a lesbian for working on my own car and I needed a man to do that. Basically, they were really trying me, but I didn't want to get into it with two literal children. As an adult, that's a seriously bad look, so I just kept telling them to get to steppin', but they wouldn't. It really seemed to me that they were trying to intimidate me by acting hard and blowing up at me. It was really embarrassing, so finally I just had enough and hosed them down. This is Florida, so it was like 75 degrees out. Anyway, that did the trick, and they left immediately. And our second story. I have to find my own coverage? Alrighty then. About 10 years ago, I got my first job at a nursing home after coming off of active duty military. The director of nursing, who we'll call Dawn, was in the reserve, so we hit it off pretty quick. I got my nursing license while in the military, and I had only really cared for young, strapping soldiers, not the elderly, but Dawn and other nurses taught me the ropes. It was a good place to work. I was able to pick up shifts whenever I needed them. I made some really good friends, and the residents and their family were all pretty great, with the occasional not-so-great ones. Now, when I went off active duty, I enlisted in the reserves. I wasn't quite ready to be fully done with my military career. Drill was always the first weekend of the month, always. I still made sure the scheduler had a copy of my drill schedule. After a year, Dawn deploys. Enter the interim director of nursing, who we'll call Karen. She had an issue with me since day one. Not sure why. I never missed work, took care of my patients like they were family. I'd never been in trouble. I just was nowhere near her list of favorites. Within the first 2 months of Karen being there, the scheduler quit. I made sure new scheduler had a copy of my drill schedule. New scheduler was cool. Was able to change us from 8-hour shifts to 12s. Made sure the same nurses worked the same halls for continuity of care. Never had an issue with her. After 3 months, that scheduler quit, along with the new staff. A young girl from the front office covered staffing for a few weeks until they were able to fill the position. A nurse transferred from the floor to scheduling. She was a bit scatterbrained, but was good at her job and wasn't afraid to work the floor when needed. Once again, I made sure she knew when I had drill. She lasted about 4 months. The girl from the office once again stepped in and eventually got the position full-time. I pointed out my drill schedule to her. It was hanging on a bulletin board where the previous girl put it, and she said she understood. By this point, my patience with Karen was running thin. She found ways to make sure I knew she didn't like me with almost every shift, checking to make sure my med cart was locked 5 to 6 times a day. She never checked other med carts. Go into rooms and push the call light to see how long I took to answer. Once again, only on my hall, and always had snarky comments to make about what she decided I was doing wrong that day. Now, I worked that hall 3 to 4 days a week, 12 plus hours a day. I had that hall down to a science, and I had the best CNAs in the building. They were rock stars. Karen decided that I could handle it and pulled my CNAs during breakfast for dining room duty. I had to do morning med pass, check blood sugars, do insulin on the diabetic residents, toilet them if needed, pass breakfast trays, and feed a few people on my own. I had 34 residents on my hall, and only about 12 of them went to the dining hall. I was not happy, to say the least, but I found a routine and was able to knock it out. That made Karen try even harder to get me. Then, on a beautiful snowy Thursday at the very end of January, the schedule for the rest of the weekend, and following week came out. The coming weekend was the first weekend of the month. And what do I always have on the first weekend of the month? Yup, drill. I was still on the schedule for that weekend. Scheduler was nowhere to be found and not answering her phone. I text the nurse who works my hall on days I'm off to see if she could pick it up, and I would work for her next weekend. No dice, she was going out of town and couldn't. The scheduler finally texts me and tells me that I never told her that drill was this weekend and had no one to cover my shifts. I told her that I'm willing to trade the weekend with anyone and work their shift. She texts back that she has no one and that I should have told her about my drill weekend ahead of time. So I went to her office once she got back from wherever she was and as nicely as possible point to the drill schedule hanging on the wall right next to her desk and ask how she could not know when it was hanging right next to her. The blood drained from her face and she said she'll figure it out. I remind her to tell the other nurses that I'll pick up shifts in return if it helps cover it. An hour later, good old Karen comes up to me and lays into me. She tells me I'm irresponsible for not telling the scheduler my drill schedule and that they're not finding coverage for my shifts. I either have to work them or find coverage myself. She asked how she could even be sure I really had drill weekends and wasn't just trying to get out of work, but she should write me up. She would cut me off anytime I would open my mouth to speak, and once she said her fill, Karen took off to her office. I'm a pretty laid-back person, and I'm usually very calm. My blood was boiling. I was able to get my shifts covered pretty easily since we're pretty well-staffed. The scheduler hadn't even tried, apparently. Well, she tried throwing me under the bus. Drill weekend comes and goes. Monday morning, I bring copies of my DD-214 from active duty, my orders sending me to my reserve unit, about 10 copies of my drill schedule, and a printed pic of the drill schedule hanging on the wall next to the scheduler's desk. Ha! I'd already found coverage for the drill weekends I had to work for the next 6 months, and even started on finding coverage for the 2-week drill a few months away. After morning med pass, tray pass, feeding, and toileting were finished, I walked into Karen's office, handed her the DD-124 and the orders, told her that there's proof of my military duty, handed her the pic of the schedule hanging on the wall, told her I should not have to remind them every month, especially when it's hanging next to the scheduler's desk, handed her the 10 drill copies just in case they needed more since the one didn't seem to be enough. She just sat there glaring without saying a word until I put the list of weekends I'd already found coverage for in front of her. Then she smirked and said maybe this taught me how to be more responsible. I smiled and told her, oh, it absolutely did, since my time in the service obviously didn't teach me anything, and that I'm sure my soldiers would appreciate her teaching their platoon sergeant such an important lesson. Then I slammed my 2 weeks' notice on her desk and explained to her that what she just tried to pull was illegal and that I could have the Department of Justice in there so fast her head would spin. As I walked out of her office, State walked into the building. State audits nursing facilities. They watch everything and go through everything and make life hell for mainly management for a week or two. One of the state auditors ended up being ex-Army. She hung out on my hall just chatting every day I worked. Karen would look at me like a deer in the headlights when she walked down my hall. I guess she thought I would purposely get them dinged or something. I was good and just enjoyed her nervousness. I trained my replacement the next week. I went on to the local hospital, and I'm still there. Karen went back to corporate once Dawn came back from Iraq. She learned what happened and reported her to corporate for that and some other things. Karen was fired. The scheduler was fired a few months after I left. Turns out her mom, who was a unit manager, was doing her job. And our last story. A bartender tipped himself $5,000 on my debit card, and my local police told me I'm not allowed to press charges. Basically, a bartender gave himself a nice tip on my debit card after only spending about $30 on a few drinks. My account didn't have that much money, but since it was put through as a tip, the original charge of $30 which went through changed to $5,041.75, which put my account at negative a couple thousand. I went down to the police station, which is located right down the road, and explained my story to the cop so he can file a report. He said he's known the owner for years and was going to go down there and sort it out. I get a call a couple hours later that he's willing to refund the $5,000, but I said I still wanted to press charges. The officer said I literally can't as long as the other party's willing to make good. So I'm wondering here, how the F can someone try to rob you of $5,000, but it's totally cool that once he's caught that he's sorry and will give it back? I was refunded the $5,000 to my account, but now I have a crap load of overdraft fees because I used PayPal to pay for my recurring payments, phone, Spotify, HBO, etc. Every time PayPal attempts to charge me, my bank tacks on another $35 overdraft fee. I've already been to the bank and opened the fraud dispute, but I only received a letter saying it'll take 60 days. I don't drive and I'm dependent on Uber and Lyft to get to work, and I can't use that with a negative balance, and my phone's about to be shut off because of this. Every time I check my account, it's just further in the negative, and I don't know what to do. Update. Called my bank and explained what happened. They reimbursed the overdraft fees. I simply asked them to do it for me, and they gladly agreed. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.